And we're live. Welcome in to another episode, this time late night with the real G Warner. I forgot to change the banner, so it's still an EPL takeover, but it's actually true because there are no soccer matches until this weekend, I don't think, in the other major domestic leagues. I'm the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Thanks for recent followers, and hopefully, this is something that you'll be into. But going to go through and actually take a first look at lines for the English Premier League midweek matches post Boxing Day. And then also do a little bit of a futures checkup towards the end of the episode for anyone that really wants me to get on a soapbox on why Real Madrid don't deserve to win La Liga and the other leagues like that. So without further ado, I'm going to go through and jump into the Premier League. So looks like on Tuesday we got couple early matches, or a bunch of early matches now I think about it. Recording this Monday night in the United States, so just a few hours away. Southampton hosting Tottenham. Currently Southampton at home, a quarter goal underdog with all the juice in Tottenham. And based on the way Tottenham's playing, I think it's deserving and probably will climb to half a goal favorite before kickoff tomorrow morning here in the U.S. Antonio Conte has been awesome. It's hard to really say anything more about that, but he's been great. He was so good with Inter last season that I would expect Tottenham to start playing very good football, better than they were playing with Jose Mourinho beginning of last season, and then the House of Cards that was their coach or manager since then. But ultimately, I think more to speak about who these teams are. Southampton are a shaky defense with a very quiet offense that doesn't score a lot of goals. It doesn't take many chances or create many chances for that matter. Whereas Tottenham are a little bit of a sleeping giant, got off to a slow start, had COVID run through their ranks and gave them like 2 weeks off and really kind of recharged their batteries. I think that's really helped Heung-min Son and then also Harry Kane as well. So I'm not sure I want to get in the way of a decent and to me what looks like a cheap road favorite with a team like Southampton, who I'm not really interested in losing money on. Next, Crystal Palace hosting Norwich, currently giving a full goal right now, all the juice on Norwich. So maybe this falls below that crucial key number of +1. But also, I'm not sure based on how Norwich have played and sitting bottom of the table, especially after Newcastle's draw this afternoon. I don't know what to say really about Crystal Palace. I think their offense has shown up this year, but also has plenty of droughts in it. The defense isn't great, but Norwich are very unlikely to really torment or trouble the Crystal Palace defense. I think they're the worst offense in the league, have scored the fewest goals, and that's with a bunch of matches that they've played more so than Burnley and others due to COVID and other snow and other reasons. I guess I'm in a position where I'm trying to stay far away from betting Norwich. I don't know that Crystal Palace are this much better that they deserve to lay a full goal. But if you're back in Norwich here, you need them to score most likely, and that's going to be really hard to expect. Or if they do, or if they're unable to score and Crystal Palace are able to keep a clean sheet, which I don't know, it's a really high likelihood. But that means that you need to restrict Crystal Palace to only one goal. And the combination of Gallagher, even though Zaha's suspended, I think Gallagher in there along with Benteke up front as a real threat in the box for headers on set pieces. I guess more I'm talking about, and this is why I do these podcasts, hopefully for you guys to get something out of it, but also for me to kind of verbalize what I'm thinking. Norwich could certainly lose 1-0, and that pushes based on the current price. So I definitely lean that way as an underdog player. That shouldn't surprise anybody who's been watching these podcasts, but ultimately I think I'm trying to stay as far away from Norwich right now. And certainly if this fell below a goal, you wouldn't see me even close to thinking about it. But I guess at +1, I haven't said no, as I can't do it on this podcast live. Watford then hosts West Ham. I guess these are all in the 10 a.m. window. Watford, a quarter goal underdog at home. Haven't played for a while due to COVID or whatever reasons. It's probably good for them. They need it, though I don't think they've found any sort of defensive center back that knows what he's doing, because they are one of the worst, like honestly comical, hilarious. We'll probably do some business in the January transfer window to bring in some center backs because they need them, because none of them seem to be Premier League quality, and they should have known that coming into the season. With that said, West Ham's offense is pretty poor, pretty quiet. Mikel Antonio, we'll see what his status is coming back from COVID. And their offense wasn't good with him, and he was kind of the talisman. However he went, that offense went. As a road favorite, that's hard to really want to back, certainly, and makes me want to play the home underdog. There's just so many flaws within the Watford team. Missing Borna Sarr right now due to injury. Hope I got his first name right. Whatever Sarr, who's been out for a while. I don't think he's close to returning. Emmanuel Dennis has been great, but is really hard to predict. Certainly is probably the most likely goal scorer in this matchup, which just means something when you have a home underdog. But the big problems from Watford at the back, even with a 1-0 lead on Brentford. I think the last match they played weeks ago now. Just seeing them completely fall apart late, give up an equalizer, and then ridiculous tackle in the box, Matty Cash style from this past weekend. I just don't know that Watford, even against a really poor offense at home as an underdog, I don't know that there's enough there for me. And maybe based on where the juice is certainly leaning to West Ham, maybe that'll climb to a half, but still not sure that's enough. Leicester then hosts Liverpool in a matchup of a very recent cup match where Leicester and Brendan Rodgers went all out, playing the best players he could. Took a 3-1 lead into halftime and ended up coughing up that lead, which is incredible. But that kind of speaks to what the Leicester defense looks like. And that was against Liverpool's reserves, a heavily rotated squad. So that's not a great sign. Leicester currently getting a goal and a half at home, most of the juice on their side, but still a goal and a half from Liverpool at home is a huge number. That was really surprising. And I don't think many people would have expected coming into the season. Leicester giving up 6 goals to Man City, really tough back-to-back, having City on the road and Liverpool at home. But fighting their way back from a 4-0 halftime deficit to get it to 4-3, only to not even cover a 2.5 goal spread that I think they closed at. I don't know. Liverpool, to me, their offense is just as good, if not better, than City's. Defense definitely worse, but I just don't know how you can back Leicester right now. They'll probably score some goals, and maybe an over is worth a look here. Totals 3.5, so that's pretty high for a soccer match in the Premier League, where they don't like to give penalties like they do in La Liga. But that's a story that I've tried to bury in the back of my mind, in my subconscious, to avoid as much La Liga penalty discussions as possible, especially when we're talking about English teams. But certainly Leicester seemed to be a really good value play. And before the season, if you told me Leicester was getting a goal and a half at home to Liverpool, I certainly would have played it. I just don't know that they're in a position where they can keep Liverpool from scoring twice. And probably Liverpool get more goals than that, which if you're playing FPL, that probably means you want some Liverpool assets, especially if they didn't play midweek or whenever, earlier this week or this past weekend, whatever. Now moving to Wednesday, Chelsea hosting Brighton. Currently Chelsea giving a goal and a quarter. All the juice on Brighton, so maybe this falls to 1, but that's still high enough that I want to back Brighton. Chelsea with a as the Aston Villa fill-in manager, interim manager, while Gerrard is recovering from COVID, said that 3-1 scoreline flattered Chelsea in more ways than I can even speak of. I added that last part, but he said it was very flattering, and I agree. From falling behind 1-0 on a crazy own goal to getting a gift penalty because Matty Cash couldn't think. The second goal was a nice. Certainly, Lukaku coming in at halftime was a major step into bringing their attack as healthy as possible, though they're still missing a ton of bodies, and certainly we're in a position to start Lukaku, and I wonder if he's healthy enough or fit enough to start this match. If he doesn't, that's a big deal in terms of what their goal scoring ability will look like, because the Pulisic, Ziyech, Mason Mount front line hasn't done enough, certainly. And I still have big questions about the Chelsea offense, and their defense hasn't been as good this season either in the last month or so. They're still hanging around the title chase, but that's certainly not looking good. And there's a lot of pressure on them to win this match. Certainly at home, they'll get a boost. Meanwhile, Brighton, who also played on Sunday, played pretty well, I thought, and took a crazy goal from Leandro Trossard, which was maybe a little bit fortunate due to bad or a misplay by the Brentford keeper, but then a great goal from Neil Maupay, who is just so Mr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. It's hilarious. But from where I sit with Brighton is that they're a really strong defense that can make it really hard on the opponent to score. Chelsea are going to have problems scoring themselves anyway. So that's a pretty nice combination, especially when catching more than a goal right now based on the current juice at Bet Online. Maybe this falls to 1, but you still push on a single goal loss there. And I don't think a draw is out of the realms of possibility. Yves Bissouma comes back from suspension, which is important in the central defensive midfield position, which seems to be like the most important position in soccer nowadays. Feel free to at me, the real _G Warner, if you disagree, but I feel like a good central defensive midfielder is the most important position in the game. And I think Brighton, the way that Graham Potter plays is he's going to have a ton of possession. They're going to keep the ball from Chelsea as much as possible. Certainly will set up defensively, but keeping shots away from Sanchez in goal is a really important part to preventing goals. He's certainly going to save a couple. And I think that Chelsea, really, their offense is nowhere near good enough to lay this type of price based on how they're playing. And this is strictly a number based off their name. Next, Brentford hosting Man City, getting 2 goals at home. Not sure about crowd restrictions in the UK, but it seems like the Premier League still has pretty full stadiums. At least they did this weekend. Man City certainly have been thrashing teams and are very scary to go against. Even getting a big spread like this as 2 goals wasn't enough, or would have pushed Brentford's trip to Brighton this weekend. I think had a lot of the ball second half when Brighton really started to pitch a tent in their own box, really, essentially, for the entire second half, it felt like. But Brentford weren't very close to scoring, and I think it's going to be a situation where Brentford are going to try their best to lose 1-0 or really to keep it goalless as long as possible. Tony up front and Bemo, who came off injured. Tony hasn't been fit for a while and really hasn't been producing much anyway. I'm pretty worried about Brentford being able to get on the board here. And once Man City gets that first goal, the second one is just as likely or more likely to go in, I think. But Brentford, as a defensive club, started the year off really well, lost a lot of players due to injury and COVID and still aren't really healthy. So that's another demerit. But getting 2 goals from City at home is a big number to get. I think the problem is that they're just not going to be able to score. And then you got to really hope that their defense, which is limited by injury and COVID, can really kind of do as much as they can to stymie the Man City offense, which doesn't really look possible by anybody right now. So always I'll lean getting 2 full goals of insurance, but that's still, I'm not sure that's enough. Moving to Thursday, Everton hosts Newcastle, giving 3/4 of a goal at home. Newcastle with a great performance today. Probably need to look back to see what this number was before the match kicked off, but really controlled a Manchester United side, though Man United is certainly not playing the way they should be based on the talent discrepancy was on the pitch. And then Newcastle with Callum Wilson and Alan Saint-Maximin injured. Looks like Saint-Maximin's injury was less serious, but Callum Wilson's probably out for a while, and that's a big problem for their offense. From the Everton point of view, how could you trust them to score 3/4 of a goal? I guess that's not possible, but getting to 2 seems very difficult for them. So best case scenario, they win 1-0 and you only lose half of your stake. The problem is the way this game will be played. Eddie Howe doesn't have any good defenders, and he's probably going to play aggressively, and that'll give some chances to Everton that they probably don't deserve. I think if I'm going against Everton in a situation as a 3/4 goal favorite, I want someone that's going to lock up the back and make it really hard for Everton to score, because they haven't proven that they can do it unless Saul Niguez makes a big mistake for Chelsea on a set piece coverage, which certainly he's shown he can do. But based on the way Newcastle played today, it was pretty impressive. They're going to be on the front foot trying to score, which means something. But I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Everton. And I'm not sure with Newcastle likely missing their 2 and really their only good goal scoring options that doesn't come from a set piece. That's probably too much absent up front from an offensive game plan. That's going to make it really hard for me to back Newcastle. And then looks like last but not least, Manchester United hosting Burnley, giving 1.25 with all the juice on Manchester United. And I don't really know where this number comes from. I mean, definitely based on names and the ability to pay salaries or wages, certainly. But Manchester United under Rangnick has looked awful. Goals have been very difficult. Bruno Fernandes, who hasn't had a really good season overall, has looked like a ghost, like barely even involved. Cristiano Ronaldo looks older and older every second, which I guess is true, and that's what happens to the human body. But not getting to passes that look like he might have gotten to even a few months ago doesn't look great. Coming back on a couple days rest seems very problematic or challenging for him. Cavani somehow he probably should have scored 3 goals today, only got one, and one was very lucky off of a toe poke deflection almost. There's a lot of problems in the Manchester United side, and I don't know that Rangnick has the players to do his 4-2-2-2 2-2-2 strategy to really press high, because I don't think he has the team to do it, and it ends up leaving slow-footed Harry Maguire running against speed. Now, Burnley, how much speed do they have to throw there? Certainly with COVID running through their team, they haven't played in a long time, but ultimately I think that's a lot better on the defensive side of strategy, as opposed to a team that hasn't played for a while that needs to score goals to cover a spread. Certainly that Burnley relies on defense, and they're going to try to choke the time out of this game by running the clock as much as possible, stalling everywhere you can. I know people hate that, but certainly as an underdog, that's what you want. Burnley don't have the speed in Wood that will really threaten Harry Maguire, but if Maxwell Cornet, the Olympique Lyonnais transfer or asset that was left Lyon to come to Burnley, he's got speed for days and can really cause some problems in Manchester United. I hope that he's healthy. I'm not sure what his status is. So, early to say from what lineups will look like on Thursday afternoon, but certainly Burnley getting more than a goal from a Manchester United side that looks like it can score maximum 1 goal per match seems pretty good. And with a problematic defense, it's going to be hard for me to avoid. So that is the, Premier League slate through Thursday, and then we'll get ready for the rest of the other major leagues coming back. But don't leave just yet. I'm going to go through the futures and see kind of what everything kind of looks like as of today, Monday, December 27th. So don't find any futures up at Bet Online. So using Bookmaker for these, but just Premier League, Man City has a pretty big lead, so that kind of makes sense. Liverpool at 4.25 to 1, basically plus 425 does look pretty interesting, while Chelsea has fallen to 13 to 1. That certainly has gotten better since the win this weekend, so that's helpful, but long way to go. And I just don't know where Man City are going to drop points. The big thing is going to be Chelsea visiting Man City, I think, in a couple weeks, or maybe even somewhat closer than that. And they're going to need to get a result and probably win at City to really get a chance to win that match, because Man City won on their home turf, and that's going to be a big issue. Liverpool seem to be a little bit safer in that way, and certainly aren't having the goal scoring troubles that Chelsea are. But they got to reverse. Time certainly isn't over yet. We're halfway through the season, but they need to start moving, and Man City need to start looking like they have some problems. And I just don't know who in the Premier League, with those teams that are so much better than the rest, are really going to challenge them from the lower levels that are going to keep Man City from getting 3 points. And as you saw, as a 2-goal favorite on the road at Brentford, they're going to be big favorites in all these matches. Next is La Liga. Real Madrid as prohibitive minus 850 favorites next on the list. Sevilla at 11 to 1. And Julian Lopetegui, the Sevilla manager, saying that this isn't even realistic for them to be looking at trying to win La Liga, even though they're in second place and I think pretty far ahead as I pull up the La Liga table. Probably good podcasting that you guys can listen to while I'm typing this in there. But 1 match behind, 8 points back. Real Madrid are so unimpressive, I think, but they're really hard to bet against because they take their chances. And Sevilla are far way back. So let's say they win that match they have in hand, and they'll be 5 points back. That's a lot to overcome, considering Real Madrid are going to be so much better than a lot of these teams they're playing. Crazy Rayo Vallecano sitting 4th right now in a Champions League spot, but kind of deserved considering how well they've played at home. Next, we can move to Serie A, and it looks like Inter with a pretty big lead right now to defend their crown. 4-point lead on Milan, and currently are minus 355, so nowhere near as big as Real Madrid. But everyone looks like has played 19 matches, at least at the top of the table. I have a future outstanding on Atalanta, who are 8 points back. nearly won at Inter, but I think drew, and that was a big problem for their title hopes. Milan in second, 4 points back, 3 points ahead of Napoli, who've dealt with a ton of injuries, yet Napoli are more likely, it's hilarious, but I think more likely to win the title is true, and certainly the odds are treating him that way. I think Milan are going to come back to earth pretty quickly. But funny thing to see Juve 23-1, but they're 12 points back halfway through the season. That's a big uh-oh. I'm not sure that they're even good enough to make a Champions League charge. Oh, they are. They're only 4 points back of Atalanta, and AC Milan certainly are going to fall. But I mean, they've got a long way to go, a lot of points to overlap or to catch up on. And I think Atalanta are hitting their stride and are going to play a lot better in the second half now that they're getting a lot healthier. In terms of the Bundesliga, I mean, let's see, it's not even listed. Yeah, Bayern Munich minus 5,000, so $5,000 to win 100. I mean, that's big number, but makes sense based on how much better they are than Dortmund. It's crazy to me that Dortmund's even close, but 9 back is a big number, 18 points away, or 18-1 to win the Bundesliga. And any money that you were thinking about throwing at Dortmund, just keep it, because they're awful, and it's kind of crazy that they're even second place, because their defense is bottom tier of the league, it feels like, of the Bundesliga, which is not great anyway. And then it looks like Ligue is so out of hand at this point. Feel free. I went through Premier League stuff on the last podcast as well, if you want to scroll back to a couple days ago. But PSG 13 points ahead. Basically, they've already conceded the race. And so now we can bet on who's going to come in second in Ligue 1. And, that's a little bit more interesting, because Nice and Marseille both on 33 points. Marseille with one match in hand because of all the cancellations, but there's probably like a point deduction in there somewhere because of their fan behavior. So that's something to watch out upon or look out at. Monaco sitting sixth. Are the second favorites, to finish second, which feels good because I have them finishing in a Champions League place at plus money, which is not looking good, and offense certainly hasn't been good. Lyon even way further down the table, sitting 13th, which is incredible to me, but how they've played, and Peter Bosch's style just doesn't seem to work in any of these big leagues, so that kind of makes sense. But Nice, who are currently sitting second or tied for second, are 7.5-1 with the best manager in the league, probably in Gaultier. So that's pretty interesting, and something that I might look a little bit closer at. Marseille was certainly with one more game to play is rightfully, I think, the favorite to finish second, but they've got plenty of problems scoring goals. Haven't been as all out attacking as they were to start the season. I think that pragmatism was forced on Sampaoli because they needed to. In terms of Monaco, goal scoring is a big deal, and they're 4 points back with one more game played than Marseille. Lille, further down the table in 8th place, they're 5 points back. I think I'm starting to like Nice more and more and more, because Nice, while they're not perfect and they certainly have plenty of flaws, I think their defense and their manager are something that we can trust. Another issue I think might be Rennes. They're sitting 2 points back of second place right now at 5.5-1. That's also of interest to me because they've been playing probably the best football non-PSG, maybe even considering PSG, beat PSG when they played earlier in the year. And I think they are another potential threat to finish second. So that might be a market I want to look at a little bit deeper, because PSG, I figured they'd be just a prohibitive favorite, even worse than Bayern, and that would never show up again. But, Nice and Rennes might be worth a look. The field number here at over 11-1 would take into consideration Montpellier, who are tied with Rennes at 31, 2 points back. Also got to see kind of what game in hand Marseille have. I think that must have been the cancellation from Lyon. So that's a tough matchup. Certainly could lose that one. But there's a lot to look at there. I guess I've given myself an assignment tonight to try to look into who I want to play to finish second in the league. But that might be time to end this little stream. We're almost at 30 minutes per usual. So I was hoping for a quicker episode, but once the futures come out, you start rambling. Anyway, I'm the real_G Warner on Twitter. Hit me on there if you got any questions for soccer. It was a quiet night in college basketball, so figured anything you want to throw at me there, happy to talk as well. Tune into the podcast with AJ is the real AJ Hoffman, and hope to get a couple more of these things going through. And thanks for joining.